Hello and welcome into Limited Time Only, brought to you by Sorare Data. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined on time by Keith Jameson, GatorGuy231, at least starting in the minute that we said we would start. Keith, how goes it?
You had to stop the trollers, the Lairdinho trollers.
As JVIC said, the not so late Eno today, which is a good one. Thank you to everybody for joining us. I'm really excited about this show because we're changing everything. And not to say that I didn't like what we did previously, but I think that the way that this show was running, we were basically having similar conversations to what we talk about kind of on the strategy show, except for like, hey, but we're going to just talk about limiteds in those strategies, which are not, it's not like these strategies did not apply to limiteds or whatnot, but like it just felt like we were recycling content. And while we had like a different view on it, it just wasn't that exciting. And so we're here to get excited. Let's see, what is this? FF Thinker, oh, Sean Thorpe, first time catching live. Thank God the host hasn't changed. A feast for the eyes and ears. No, thank you very much. Unless it's probably just Keith you're talking about. But anyway, I have to give credit to Nepenthes for a bit of a change of what we're doing here. And it was basically on a conversation I was having with him on a whole lot of things. But ultimately it came down to like, you guys should just do what you talk about. And he's right. It was as simple as that. So what we're going to do is, at least on this show, we're going to talk about trading versus SO5 lineup priority, because I think when people are starting out, or not even starting out, whenever people want to play, they were like, oh, should I just trade SO5? Is one better than the other? Not to say you can't do both, but I feel like we always have this kind of running thing in the back, like, well, if you really just want to make the most ROI in Sorare, you should just trade. And we're like, well, that's not fun. You should really play SO5 because, you know, rewards are fun and all this stuff. And we're just going to find out. We're going to do it. And we are going to kind of do this together while also doing it separately to make sure that we follow all the rules.
Rules that we have not established, I should say.
We are not going to bypass list or play, but that would be fun. But really what we're going to do is we're going to talk about both SO5 strategies and trading strategies on this show every week. But it's going to be ones that we are actually working through. And so one of us is going to be a trader. One of us is going to be the SO5 guy. And again, we'll work together in terms of strategies and stuff like that. So it's not like it's just, we're not competing against each other. We're both going to be successful doing this. But each week we're going to kind of discuss some strategies, implement those strategies in our limited galleries, and then see what happens. Keith, is this a good idea?
It potentially is a horrible idea, but I told you I'm always excited to come on and talk Sorare, like departure from normal business life for me. So this is kind of like an hour off of the work week. And yeah, I'm actually like extra excited because it could be a crash and burn, especially like I'll just jump into like on the trading side. As I was like started this morning, I'm like, I'm just gonna play around and look around at some stuff, and realizing that 5% is a big deal. That wasn't there like when I did a lot of trading in the past. So like as you're like computing, trying to figure out, okay, I have to build in that I can at least make 5% on this card, or I'm gonna take an L. And that's really like difficult when you're a lot lower too. Like I notice that more when it's, you know, a $5 card. You know, maybe you can make $5.50, and it's like there's not a lot of margin there. Like that, the risk reward doesn't really add up.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I'm really interested. Like I think we're gonna take some L's, especially in the trade. Like both sides, actually, we're gonna take some. Shoot, we should probably bring up that lineup that you wrecked. with that Marcelo pick. But we're gonna have SO5 losses, we're gonna have trading losses, but hopefully some big wins too. So I'm excited.
Yes. Hopefully more wins than losses. We'll
hopefully more DNPs on. I will say this. I tease you, but I told you, like, what was it, like lock night? I started having big concerns when I went to go get him. I'm like, all right, he was in the squad midweek. He left 89th minute injury, which sometimes is never an injury at all. It's just, a cramp, and they're gone. And then we found an article that said he's supposed to be back. And he actually crushes, and they won 1-0. He's on all sets. They didn't score till late. I'm pretty sure he would have absolutely smashed. And we probably would have come up with a T4 or T3 in there. But, it still got a 0.
Yeah, it was disappointing and probably not a risk we should have taken. Like, it's as simple as that. Not to say that, like, this is the only time we can use this lineup. We can run it back.
Right.
But everything kind of lined up well for this lineup, which is why we played it. And so the 0 that's tough to come back. Where were you? 51 points away from a tier 5.
What were we from like a tier 4 or tier 3? Any actual chances at those?
68 points from a tier 4, 90 from a tier 3. Okay. So even the tier 3 would have been a bit tough. I mean, one decisive and a clean sheet usually isn't enough to get like a great reward.
Right.
But so let's see who.
Look at Barbosa.
72 and would have been Marcelo.
And Marcelo would have been on sets. Barbosa, I don't believe would have been. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Oh yeah, Tuggy. He told me this morning. Tuggy wants a shout out. So Tuggy's gonna get a backhanded shout out. So Tuggy watches the show and he DMs us. He goes, I think I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to stack the U because Tuggy is a longtime Universitario stan. And so it was a great matchup. Hence why
you heard that right, everyone, by the way.
I didn't say anything wrong there, right? I didn't say anything wrong. But so if you didn't see the game, Universitario actually went up a man like 10 minutes in. Tuggy did do a stack. Had Polo, had the goalie, had defender. And he also, instead of taking a guy that he shouted out here, Urena, who ended up getting an assist, he took Alex Valera, who's actually a very good striker, and I think set the Opta record for the most big chances missed in one 90-minute game.
So, yeah, Urena had...
He didn't even know he had 100.
He had 100, 45 all around. By doing basically absolutely everything on the pitch. And yeah, Varela ended on a 14.4 thanks to his 6 big chances missed. Like, that's not even 6 chances. That is 6 big chances. And then literally a 30-point hit. Which, I mean, otherwise, as crazy as it sounds, otherwise, like 9 shots on target, a little bit of possession, no defensive work, obviously, but that's a tough one to stomach there. But.
So, and we'll end this section in typical Sean fashion, and we'll say, rip the Tugs. All right. So let's go back to other side.
It's a tough one. Yeah. So what we're going to do is try to avoid those situations. But anyway, what the goal of this show, basically from now on, is each week we're going to talk about what we think will help this gallery grow, whether it's the trading gallery or the SO5 gallery. And again, like, nobody's stopping anybody from doing this in their own gallery together. But we just thought, accounting wise, it's a little easier to be like, we traded this and all of that. We'll probably need a spreadsheet anyway. But we want to see how good we could be in SO5 playing limiteds and how much we can trade. And we're not setting a specific budget for this. We're just going to go for it. I'm not saying, financial advice, but I don't think we need to kind of handcuff ourselves to this is exactly how much we have to spend. And you're going to be able to see everything that we do. So you can tell if like, oh, that's more than I want to spend. I actually want to spend more than that. And we'll just kind of go through those strategies.
I will say this, and I think I'm safe there. Neither one of us are bringing in Mbappe unless we win one.
You can't win one now.
You know, I'm not planning it personally. I don't know about you. I'm not planning on any Mbappe, Kimmich. That's not really the style I want to take on this. You know, I kind of want to do a little bit of a grind, a little bit of a off the beaten path, so to speak.
Yeah. So that is at least the important thing that we want to emphasize, that we are not just going to go out and buy all of the best players we can. We're going to try to take the tools available to us from Sorare data and use them to find players that maybe some people aren't thinking of, people don't know about them, ones that we think that may be undervalued, but can still succeed in the game, or can just become more valuable later on. They're obviously, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you actually gave a big segue, and I don't know if you actually meant to, but if somebody else wants to use Sorare data tools.
I was not going to segue there, but thank you for that, Keith. So I tweeted this in case you didn't see it. We are going to do a giveaway every show, except this one, because and I'll explain why. But every week we are going to give away one free month Star membership to somebody watching. And I realize that this show, because it's based on limited cards, it's a lower budget than people who are playing super rares and uniques, who may watch some of our other content or anything that you guys watch. And so we just want to be able to show off what memberships allow you to do on Sorare data, because everything that we show on the screen, like I am a Star member, so everything that I show is available for Star members. And so, like I said, every week we're going to give away a free 1 month Star membership to whoever wins. And so basically what we're going to do is announce what you have to do in this show, like today. And then next week we'll say a winner. And then next week we'll also just do another, this is what you need to do. Classic giveaway stuff, guys. But I'll probably mention this a few times in the show. If you are listening to the audio version of this show, or you happen to be watching it on Spotify, the way that you have to enter this week is on YouTube. So you'll have to go over to the Sorare Data YouTube channel. But basically, if you could just comment in the video what your favorite Sorare Data tool is. And then everyone who comments, everyone gets one entry. It's not like 5 comments get 5 entries, but and then we'll run basically a raffle draw next week. We'll do it on the show and we'll see who wins. And we'll do that every week so that more and more people can at least get more access to see what Sorare data has to offer. So again, to enter this week, just leave a comment in the video, not in the live chat, just so there's no confusion. Not in the live chat, in the comments below, just your favorite Sorare data tool, and that will enter you. It's as simple as that. So Keith.
Let's go.
There are tons of strategies in terms of SO5 of like where we think we should go, but I don't want to talk about that yet. I want to talk about trading, because
yes, I do
too. you started off on Sorare trading, and how did you phrase it then when you started to look back on it, like thinking of it again?
Oh God, I'll have to look through our DMs and I'm not gonna remember. But I was like,
it almost sounded like you were like, I'm back in the dark arts or something like that.
No, I was gonna say like this dark rabbit hole that had closed is reopened.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And you know what the great? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll let you.
Well, I just remember like early on, and we knew each other before Sorare, so it's like we have basically been talking your entire time on Sorare. This is different than us like meeting on Sorare, but like you came in trading, like I'm going to buy this guy for $5. Yeah. I'm going to sell him for $8. And I'm just going to keep doing that over and over again. And then you started playing SO5 and you were like, oh, this is really fun too. And admittedly, it's difficult to do both let me rephrase. I think it's difficult to do both at the frequency you were trying to trade back then. And so you have to choose. I mean, plenty of people have figured out how to get 30 hours out of a day. I haven't yet. But when it comes to trading, like there are all these different strategies you can buy backup goalies and wait 2 years, or you can buy guys, you see someone get hurt and you like immediately buy the backups, or you buy players who are currently injured and they want to go back, and they're coming back soon. So like, is there a single is there like a single category that you think may be most effective for our exercises here?
I think I'm trying to figure that out, to be honest with you, because I think a ton has changed. Like, so the coolest thing about you opening the rabbit hole is I found my old Google Sheets, and I sent you some excerpts. By the way, the single most painful excerpt I found. The first card I ever bought on Sorare is, I think you might know this now. I will tell you this. He was a top 10 player on the entire platform last year.
Last year, not.
And
I was going to say like Morioka.
No. He got a bad transfer. I'll just say it was Grimaldo. It was my first ever, because he was a DFS legend. Like, we didn't get to play Benfica very often, but when you did, I still can think of good friend of both of ours, Luis Pacheco, would always be like, I love that Grimaldo, sweet left foot.
Yeah.
And so I started watching him, and I flipped him for like the equivalent of like $40. I had put $100 into, or like I think my first transaction was like $250 on the platform, and traded him for $40 profit, and then just kept on rolling. And the worst part about that time, and like why so much has changed, you would have to like wait almost a day sometimes for your transfer to be complete.
Yes.
And then another day to get the ETH, because all this, if anybody ever wants like a technical side of all of this, your pod with Jimmer and Black, I like learned more about the blockchain in that show than I had known. But so that was a weird time, and that was also a time that it was early. I like looking back at that stuff. There was a lot more of a margin for error to make mistakes on cards, and like make buys that you shouldn't have made, and you still got money out of it. Like, half the guys I flipped at the beginning, I don't even know who they are anymore. Like, outside of me, like, what's a Steve DeRitter? And then I have a Gravenberch, but not that Gravenberch. The other
it's
one.
Like buying the other Tadic.
right. Actually, no, that guy actually is half decent. Like Dario Tots.
Dario, yeah.
Yeah, but so I'm like looking through all this stuff, and I really don't. I think right now the best way to trade, like I bought like 14 cards. I told you you like let an addict out, and I'm like, I remember how much fun this was. And I own like 4 Diego Rossi's right now, because there's the transfer rumors, and I fist pumped as you were going because one just sold. It was like the first flip of this exercise.
Well, it's funny.
About $2.
Glenn here is saying that he almost bought yours, but he had to save 12 cents on the guy who listed it cheaper. So
I got undercut.
RIP.
I got undercut. It's okay. It's okay. I should say this too, because this is like the darkest part I found is, so when me and you would like just buy limiteds for this show, or like even last week, I'm just like, whatever's those on the market, buy now. I'm not going to fight with somebody over $1. And now I'm like, for the reason of this and tracking, I got to fight over $1, because that $1 might be the 5% that I have to give up to Sorare when I go to sell it on that side. Right. So if anybody watches and you get like a bad offer from Lairdinho and we counter you back, and you're like, what a jerk, just accept. It's part of the process. We're sorry. We appreciate you watching, and we're not trying to be a jerk. But we have to win.
But yeah, we've got bills to pay. No,
like, I felt so bad. I was countering. Sorry. I was gonna say I was countering with one guy, and it was like such a cheapish card, and we're like 60 cents apart. And I sent him a counter. I'm like, I'm one of those.
I think the one that got me, I remember, is when Sean, PSU Fans 2, bought his limiteds. He bought like 150 limiteds on one day. Like, he was just like, okay, click buy. And I was like, are you really not offering for any of these? You're just buying. But as we've learned, like, the limited market is liquid enough where the floor price is usually close enough to the recent values that, like, it just usually makes sense. And not to say there isn't like undercutting or what now, but there is a bit of help with that, in terms of you don't always need to just offer. Like, sometimes Just the price is the price, and that's what it is.
Right.
So we'll see where that takes us in the future, because we'll be undercutting people anyway. But what is so you bought a few Diego Rossi's because you were like, he is supposed to transfer to MLS. It sounds like he could replace Lucas Del Rayon in Columbus, at least in terms of a roster spot.
And he was really cheap. We know what he did in MLS. So I think that's the one thing about trading is, at least from my perspective, is I still think that having a little bit of requisite knowledge of like the players and what they may end up being able to project to is big, because like that's what I was talking about. The market is just very different. You would get a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, you would get a transfer rumor and you would get this middle finger right away. It doesn't matter if it was a good move or not. Like, you know, there would be all these times I can remember us like in chats going, why do people think this is a good move? The guy's gone to die. So you would see the shoot up, and then you would see I think, you know, they probably like showed it off on Twitter or showed it off to friends, and they're like, dude, that was a terrible move. Then you go, oh crap, and then it spirals down. I feel like we don't get that up down anymore. It's unless it, you know, it's a this and then the move falls apart, then you'll see the track back down. But I think the majority of the user base or people doing this or that are reacting that fast know if it's a good or bad thing. So I think that's one deal to know right away. And you can see that other middle finger there is when the Atlanta rumors had heated up.
So that's what I was just about to bring up. So like, obviously there was not much going on. Rossi's not even like a regular starter for Fenerbahce. So like, and then the introduction of Tadic, like it just didn't seem like he was going to stick around. And then, there was this talk that Atlanta was looking at him. I think Atlanta has his discovery rights or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you see this, like this area where it shoots up. And then nothing really happened. And everyone was like, oh, maybe he's staying. And so the price comes back down. And then it comes out today that maybe Columbus is interested. And it looks like it actually spikes twice. Like it's kind of a very interesting, like initial one and then a break and then another one that went.
Can I tell you why? Can I tell you why? Somebody that was watching. It's such a weird day. I actually had a light day. So I was like, this is a good time for me to start. So the first one was, there was like a European reporter guy that I have alert set up for, and he unloads that news, and you saw that. But in the MLS, there's one source that everybody trusts, and it's Tom Bogart. So when he submits something, Tom Bogart sent one about an hour later, and that I'm pretty sure that's the second wave was Bogart buys, because that's when I did the first one. I think I missed a little bit. I was probably in between here on the buys. And then all of a sudden Bogart's tweet came out and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I can go ahead and list one of these now and lock in a little bit of a win, because I saw the price starting to shoot up.
I'm just going to.
And I actually, funny enough, I think there might be a third middle finger on Rossi coming, because Bogart's is not done yet.
Right.
And I think he's like a $20 card if he lands in Columbus, and he's still not quite there. So
I was going to say, so he's around 15. I will piggyback on that that there's always an additional spike. Maybe not even a spike, but there's an additional hump when things become official. Like the middle fingers that we see, well, not even the middle fingers, but the quick spikes are the people who are on the news and like, oh wow, and they buy. And then when it becomes official, that's when more people know about it, and then they're just like, oh yeah, I'll buy into that, so I'll take that. While we're here, Bogart also has one about your boy Brian Acosta, who is now going to Portland Timbers.
I was terrified that was going to be a Saudi rumor that I missed.
Nope. And Diego Fagundes going to LA Galaxy.
Yeah, no, I mean that won't do any good for him. And then Arena.
So 36 hours left in the summer transfer window. We're now down to 35 minutes. So you should probably see some more of these moves happening. To go back to a question, Blue Tomatoes said, what are discovery rights? ZM Star with the perfect description. It's basically calling dibs.
Pretty much. Like, the MLS is the worst league for this stuff ever. Like TAM, GAM, DP, young DP, this stuff. Like do yourself a favor. Like, try not to. Don't worry too much about it. For the sake of Sorare. Yeah.
Joe Ducey was saying they were talking about Bogart on Deke's stream last night, saying he was the MLS Fabrizio Romano, which I think is a decent one.
I'll say one thing though that I appreciate about Bogart's tweets and things like that is Fabrizio definitely seems like he likes to chum the waters, like on certain guys that he knows is going to get clicks. Like, how many Gavardiol updates have we gotten? And Bogart is more of like, this is about to happen, and then one more. There it is. You're welcome, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get as much like clickbait stuff from him.
He also has a grade A mustache, so props to him for that.
Bogart's great. And he's been great. Hold on, I just want to say one more thing on Bogart. He's actually been great to the Sorare community too. Like, he's jumped on some shows and he's like answered questions. Like, so, props to him.
Absolutely. So I feel like we're going to end up going an entire hour on trading, which
we'll split it up. Can we do one more thing just on strategies for the trading?
I'm not remotely close to done on trading. I'm not ending us. I'm just warning everybody that we might not get into the SO5 stuff.
Well, we've done a lot of SO5 stuff. So, I mean, that's the plus. Last show was mostly pick scores and things like that, which is what we're going to really use to pick our teams going forward too.
Yes. So before I get into that point, just a reminder to everyone, if you missed it or you came in late, we are having a competition where the winner will win a free month star subscription to Sorare Data. Just in the comments below, not in the live chat, in the comments of the video on YouTube. Just write in your favorite Sorare Data feature, and that alone will enter you into the raffle, and we'll pull it on next week's show. Oh, I'm out next week. Oh, I'll think of something. We'll double up.
We'll
figure it out. Don't worry about it.
All right.
So there's that. So Diego Rossi, you were like, I bought a few, and I see here you are about 2 hours ago, and obviously you can see that a few other people.
I did again. There's another one. I did another one on the Bogart one because I did two just speculating, and then I felt a little bit better. I'm like, let me just get one more before this price goes up.
Okay, perfect. How viable is the strategy of news hits? Let me buy 5 or 10 of these guys.
Not that great. Let me tell you why. So, if anybody wants, like, it's really old. One of like the first Sorare Data shows I was on, but we talked about my first ever strategy, which was night and season. And that was before limiteds. I'm not going to go down the whole story, but anyhow, what you'll find out is if you have too much of one player, it's actually really hard to offload, unless like you have a lot of margin. Like, you can't list, especially in limited world. It was a little bit easier and rare, except for everybody that bought Brad Knight in at that time bought him to flip. Nobody actually bought him to buy. So I think that's the problem with some of these guys. If like everybody's like, oh, I'm just going to flip him. If everybody's doing the same thing, competition isn't a great thing. You want to be somewhat on an island. So, everybody seems to be wanting to flip Rothschies. That means that the margin is really low. So you've got to like list, I think, at like a really opportune time. So like if you can be ready to go when the next Bogart tweet comes out, finalizing it, and he's on, you'll probably get a sale. If you're 20, 30 minutes late, and I know that's a small amount of time, but if you're that much late, you might have missed the first uptick wave, and you see on the chart, you'll see this like little bit of a down swing because that's everybody undercutting each other. To find like, you have 10 sellers to 2 buyers. It's just going to promote it going down.
How many Rossi limiteds do you think are currently for sale?
It's way too many. There was already a lot. I should say that's another thing. Like, I almost didn't buy what I did, but I felt good about like the player because he was awesome in the MLS before. So I was like, all right, just my boy Sorare USA, just go ahead and get a little bit of pump out there and we'll be all right. But there was already a ton before the news hit. You want to look at that too. If you see like 40 to 50 of a guy, that's a really flooded market versus some of these guys. When I bought them, I only see like 7 or 8, and that's a good market to be in because you always have half those people asking a stupid price that they would never get sold at anyhow.
Well, so I'll bring that up. So there are 40 currently
That's
on
way
sale.
too many. Yeah,
The
it's way too many.
floor is $12.49. The ceiling, if that's even what you call it, is $44.81. Like, obviously this card is, nobody's selling at 44. They're actually 2 over 40, and they're about 10 over $20, and then everyone else is kind of in the middle. Did you post yours immediately for sale?
No, because I bought 2 right away, and the price hadn't budged at all. And I'm like, cool, the report isn't like one of the main guys, so I'm just gonna wait. And then when Bogarts came out, I went back and checked my phone, and I saw one of the cool things is if you're holding them and ready about to sell, if you start seeing all of the buy nows disappear on like the UX, all of a sudden they just all disappear. Then you're like, okay, I got a little bit of a run here. Do I want to list now or do I want to wait? And I went ahead and listed. Immediately got undercut. I just lowered one more. I'm like, if I get undercut again, then I won't be selling at this moment. And I made, to start this endeavor, I made $2.40.
So I'm going to look at that. I was looking at this myself and then realized this is something I should point out to everybody. So if anybody is unaware, if you are on the price graph on Sorare data, you can just drag a box over a certain number and it'll just expand to those. It works vertically and horizontally. So like, this is just so it's clear, that's not like 0, but this was your first buy, $9.35. And it kind of goes, I mean, you can just watch it wherever it is. And there's the one that you sold, $12.67. Yep. So it was just funny to hear you talk about this, because you were like, I think he's going to be really good. He could, like, this is obviously is a benefit to him. He should be more, but you sell immediately, at least one.
And there'll be another one being sold here soon.
You are going to, like, you have another one sold?
No, I'm going to wait for the official, and then I'm going to sell the other 2. I'm not going to hold any of them.
Right. So we go he's going to do really well in MLS. He's going to be so much better. I mean, now, like, he was really good in MLS. I think there was a small part of it, not even a small part. There was a part of it where the fact that he played for like an incredible team. And
and the player and and I just want to say this too. Carlos Vela, like what Messi's doing right now, Vela actually did that first in the MLS. Like Vela's first year in the MLS was the most ridiculous season like the league's ever seen.
And did Rossi win the Golden Boot?
I can't recall. Like I thought he did. He might have been second. He had a lot of goals.
Yeah. So now, granted, you're looking at this now. These are just his starts for LAFC. A 56, 57 average isn't like fantastic. So like, even though he was very good, is one of those that was like, he may have been better in real life, where he was just like exciting, and like you don't get any extra points for exciting goals. So everybody knew who he was. We knew he was really good. And then when he left, it was like a big deal for MLS, because it was like a big transfer, like out of the league. And so the idea is now like, hey, he's coming back. He could be great. I'm definitely selling this card.
I mean, I think that's really important though in like the trading versus SO5 strategies. Like I've noticed as I've gotten more and more cards in my gallery over the years, if you don't make a decision on a card right away, like a reward, that's the one thing I've seen the most. And I'll like go back after a month. I'm like, why the hell is this dude still in my gallery? Like I have no desire to play him. I have like, he's never going to be a guy I even want to play in cap mode because he stinks. Why is he here? And then, you realize that it was in that one moment that you won him, you were trying to make a decision. Oh, I might think his price is going to go up, or I think it's normally it's up. We only think positively.
Right.
And so it just gets stuck in your gallery. So I say that to you, if you're going to like do trade, I think you need to make a designation right away. This is going to be a sell player. I'm not going to fall in love with this guy. I'm not going to go, oh, I'm just going to squeeze one matchup out of him. Because the matchup that you wanted to squeeze out of him because it was a good matchup is also the one you should have sold him on, because everybody else thought that was a good matchup too.
So we'll get to that, because that is another big trading strategy that exactly how you just described it is what will get you in trouble. Because I mean, we've all gotten cards where this is exactly, Glenn nails it here. I'm allergic to holding an ETH balance. I'm not even sure why I bought him. Like there are plenty of times where you're just there at the right time to get a card that could double in the next 20 minutes. And you're like, I'm going to buy this card. And the reason you buy the card is like a reason to keep the card also. And so then you're like, just as you described, like leading up to the game week, it's a lot of times where we see like a short week, midweek, not a lot of matches, and you buy a card because you're like, everybody's going to want this card. And then you're like, but I kind of want this card now. And it's like, you really need to stick to your plan if you are trading, or else you're going to end up with all of these extra cards. And Tuggy here saying buy 2, spend more money. It's still not the right, like, I still think that's actually wrong. Like, I don't, because you are going to inevitably end up with the card longer than you think the value is there. And then you're just, then
the worst part, I know you have this exact feeling too, is like the longer they sit there, the more you're like, all right, well, I'm just waiting for a specific price. I'm just waiting. And here's like, I just need to offload because I might be waiting here forever. And that ETH could have been used, or those dollars. And I keep saying that the dollars could have been used better somewhere else. Can you go to Malky's comment 235?
I was just about to.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go into a couple other strategies. I think this is the one. And right now, if you wanted to start this with us right now, the most viable way to make the most right now, I think, is transfers. That is always like the best trading time, in my opinion. It's like where we can make the most margins because guys can go from being nothings to heroes. They can go to Saudi and be zeros too, right? But I think that there's the most margin to be made.
Yeah. So for those listening, Malky was saying this isn't a sustainable trading strategy for most people. You've got to be in the right place at the right time for transfer rumors. Shout out to Malky for being able to get off the computer, by the way. That's a skill that I think a lot of us could afford to have. But absolutely right. And I think this is going to sound very strange. I think it's the laziest trading strategy you can do because it's the easiest and it's the quickest. It also,
it's literally the alert on your phone and you go.
Yeah. But it also, you need something to happen for an opportunity to come up. It's not it's not waiting for somebody to have a midweek where they have an island game and they're like the only U23 goalie on the platform. And people want to play U23 and they'll buy that card.
It's a great one.
Like those things you can plan for. You cannot just plan for, I'm just going to wait for a transfer rumor and go for it. ZM Star, dump all your money into Saudi players and wait for next year. I'm
not going to condone it.
Joe Juicy said just buy all the Zelas, which I initially read as zebras, and I was like, I don't know what that means. But I didn't want to talk about Saudi, but I think there's a reasonable expectation that they will be covered after this season. I have no idea if they will be, but it just seems like there are going to be too many players there that people will be interested in. It's not people asking for like the sweet, like apologies to the Swedish top flight division, but like people aren't asking for that. But I think there are going to be enough people, and it is people who have lost cards there. Like it's not because of any other reason than that. But I think there are going to be enough players there where they will have to license some of those teams in order to get those players. And I think it's inevitable.
I just want to see,
but it's just my opinion.
I just want to see Nicholas go in there with like a heavy hammer and go, how much are you going to pay us to license you?
I don't even think you need a heavy hammer for that. They pay everybody for everything. So why
I know. I just want him to flip the script. I wanted.
Yeah. They seemed very firm on we're not going to do it this year, meaning this season, which I think is fine. But Jerem said we most certainly are expecting the Swedish top flight. So if you're expecting the Swedish top flight, then you're going to be expecting the Saudi one.
Go buy some up.
Yep. But again, you're not looking at utility. I mean, some teams have the Asian Champions League, but you're not looking at full utility until basically this time next year. And
now, I'll just say, I just want to make 2 comments on that, because that is technically like one of the strategies to use too, which is projecting out and waiting, like on an injury, things like that. But I do think anytime you're thinking about that long, not only are you like having to wait on Sorare to get a license to make it happen, but you also have to like endure a lot of market risk in terms of just, you know, what's the limit going to be worth at that time? What's a rare going to be worth? Like, you know, is Cash Wallet going to explode this thing where they're all going up? Are more users going to create a different pressure on the market? Like, we really just don't know. So, you know, I always get concerned when I'm flipping. A flip is not meant to be a year-long project. A flip is like a house flipper, right? House flipper doesn't go, I'm going to buy this house in 2023 and sell it in 2030. House flipper goes, I have a 3-month project and then I want it out. Get it done.
Yeah,
and then, you know, I think the same thing on our cards.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's one of the things that you should probably be disciplined about if you're starting to do a trading strategy, which we'll talk about both here and when we're not on stream. But the not to say like you buy a card and you're like, I'm out at this price, but there does have to be a point where you're like, I'm out on this price. And I think what a lot of people struggle with when they do that is, I'm going to buy this card for $10 and they get an offer for 13 or 15 and they're like, but it could be 25. And it's like, that's when you lose. I mean,
and you know what
there
happens?
will be some that go to 25, maybe, but
normally it hits 8. Normally it hits 8 before it hits 25.
If it hits, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so rarely, unless like what I've noticed too when like trading cards or just, you know, even when it wasn't meant to be a trade, but like if you can project out the nugget or the edge that nobody else sees, or you see it first. Like the hardest thing, I was noticing this when I was buying some cards this morning. Like you actually want, there's like this nice thing that when you see somebody else buy it the minute before you or the minute after you, it's like this justification for, all right, I'm not alone. Somebody else sees it. Cool. And it's like really hard, but the best trades or the best flips are when nobody else is doing it. And you're like, you did it off of a hunch. You know, you saw, like you said, the U23 goalkeeper in a week has an island game, but nobody sees it now because he's playing the worst matchup possible this weekend and nobody wants him for the weekend. But you're like, I'm not here for the weekend. I'm here for next week and I'll see you on Monday when you want my card. Like that I think is the strategy. Like we don't want a ton of people with us, kind of what you're saying with Rossi and 42. You don't want that. You want to be like having your flip on the market when there's 3 other people, 2 of which don't have any intention to sell because their price is stupid. You go put a good price that tempts somebody and you get it done and then you move on to the next one.
I think the other thing to consider is the longer your time frame is for when you think you're going to sell, meaning like if you buy a U23 goalie who's a backup and you're like, he's going to be a starter next year somewhere, or you're waiting for an injury to the starter. There are things that can happen outside of Sorare that are completely out of our controls that can vastly affect the market, which is exactly what we saw. Like, so I made this watch list in October 21st. And I thought these were cards that would be lower at some point, and then they would rise going into the season. So it's basically America and Asia players. So like we're talking about October, it's the end of the Asia season, basically the end of MLS. And now there are some players here like transfers and whatnot that affect things, but it's down huge. And normally what we saw in Sorare is at the end of seasons, cards prices go down. And when they start going into the new season, they go up again. So I was like, hey, here's a list. I think I just did, how many players is this? 51 players. I guess someone I couldn't drop off, but 51 players. They were probably just the top L15 or L40 guys. And it was like, hey, these guys could be more in February because they're always more in February, and nothing is more in February from now. Like everything is down, and like a global recession helped cause that. So it's not like just Sorare was going down. So you just have to realize that the longer that your time frame is when trying to, I don't even want to call it flip, to sell a card, There are
Right.
just other factors that can come into it that you just, what, players get hurt. Like you could have a U23 goalie. Hey, he finally, looks like he's going to get the job, and he, tears his labrum or something. He's out for the season, and it's like that's totally out of your control. And so, I think generally for our purposes, our trading purposes, we're going to try to focus more on a shorter term, basically a shorter term outlook. And will we miss out on some upside? Yeah, but we think that that's basically the safer way to do it.
Well, and if you're trading, if you're like micro trading to start out, if you're $5-10 cards, the money, like, so my whole, when I did all this, was just to get enough funds, not have to put a ton of my own personal funds into the site to be able to play SO5 and play it competitively. Like that's why, like when I started out flipping cards, that's what I was trying to do. It wasn't like to cash everything out and go on a trip. It was I want to play this game, but I also, there's some risks in this game at this point. I would rather not have $50,000 in this site. I'd rather try to see if I can create it on my own. If you're doing this type of thing too, you should kind of have a goal of what you're trying to do, which is not just, the goal shouldn't be to make a lot of money. Like that's a crappy goal. I mean, it's a good goal, but like there's no baseline to it. Like the goal should be, I want to be able to make X number, so I could either be trading higher dollar cards where the margins are bigger, or because I want to be able to not only trade on the side, but I'll start putting SO5 lineups in and kind of diversify how I am utilizing Sorare. It's like my goal is to make money, or my goal is just to have fun. I can diversify my fun or diversify my ability to make more by doing multiple things. So, I mean, look, I'll just say this. Powell Trader, everybody's favorite, he's starting to crush it in SO5. And like that wasn't like a thing for a while, but he also went, especially with Lister Play, he's like, well, I have all these uniques. I might as well enter unique all-star. And I mean, that dude's hit multiple podiums from that. I mean, I remember, I know he's had other ones, but I mean, the dude, he won a Dusan Tadic super rare. That was wild.
Yeah. I like this. Joe Ducey said, so you're saying this series should have an end goal like SO5 or trading first to Messi?
I will tell you this: if I do well enough, like there's one glaring hole in my rare gallery, and it is Messi sized.
It's a lot of limited sales to get to a Messi.
That'd be a hell of an end, though.
Yeah, paperclip to Messi is what ZM Star said. I like this question from Germ because I think it's worth talking about. What about season-long, and it doesn't need to be MLS, but season-long MLS injuries at this time of season and market cycle, like Nathan at San Jose, Jack Price in Colorado, or Eric Williamson at Portland? Williamson is like the saddest story of all of them. But what are your thoughts on buying guys like that who have been out? I know Jack Price was one of your guys at some point.
I still have a super rare. Thanks for the reminder.
Should I bring up the Orsic comment that somebody else made? Or
I saw it too. Just stay away from my super rares and anybody in PSU fans gallery because they're going to go to Saudi. But I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the injury one. There's too many stuff that comes up. Now, can I say the injury one I love, if we want to go strategy 2, was Brad Guzan. That injury thing, I think, was like one of the more opportune trading times. It was a little bit long, but like if you break down like what happened with him. So he gets hurt. The dude plays the whole game, finishes the whole game on, what was it, a torn meniscus or torn MCL? Something in his knee, right? Yeah. The team comes out afterwards, says 8 to 12 weeks. And somehow Twitter decides, or X, or whatever the hell that's called now.
It was Twitter then.
It was Twitter then. But Twitter decides, multiple people, he's played his last game. He's done. And you just start seeing the sell-off, people tweeting out, I'm off of him, I'm done. And he's back in 6 weeks. And now he's not really back because he's terrible.
Well, yeah. If you were like anything's better than nothing, you're actually wrong about that, because literally nothing would make me feel better. Joe Ducey said Achilles. I thought the Achilles was last year.
That was last
kept him out for so long. But I think the Achilles is the reason why people thought he was done now, because they were like, this is another injury for a 38-year-old guy. Like, he's obviously done. And there really wasn't any indication that like his career was over. But
it was just speculation. But like, I mean, I ended up getting a super rare at that time for I won't. Let's
0.09.
talk dollar figure. Let's just but let's say it was probably like $160, and then sold it for 5 times that a month and a half later, like unintentionally. Like I wasn't going into this going, I'm going to make a ton. It was like, hey, here's a chance at a cheap super rare goalkeeper that could really help my gallery. So I think moments like that, those like misinformation, I think is a really good flipping strategy. And I've seen this a few times. Guzan's the most obvious example I can think of. What's another one? I mean, we've had ones where I've literally been in chats as the game goes on and like somebody gets hurt. Like I distinctively remember, because it was Black and I don't mind shouting out Black on this for our idiocy, but Andre Blake, I think it was like playing NYC. He like his shoulder ran into the post or something like this. And the dude is like down hurting, multiple medics on the field, including the guy that gets a red card later in the year. That dude's a hero. I don't know if you know the jacked Philly guy. Anyhow, and if you all of a sudden start seeing people selling off, thinking that his season is over, and then he gets up.
Yeah. The Undertaker gets.
So like, I mean, I think that there's some viability in that if you're watching a game too, but like actually you see a goalkeeper. Like here's another one. Here's a good one. I know this isn't going to help the comment of being on your phone, but you're watching a game and the guy gets hurt. And like, what was the one? What was the Surface spot the unique when it happened? Who was the dude last year for Leipzig that tore his knee?
Yeah, the goalie, Galashi.
Yeah, Kalashi.
Yeah,
and
Giannis Blazovic.
A lot of people, and he ended up starting the whole season, if I remember right. So I mean, that would have been an opportunity, and you could have either used a Blazovic or you could have sold him. But if you were watching, you had a chance to double or triple your money.
I feel like that is such a clear example of when you would have like bought it and you were like, I'm going to flip this. And you're like, actually, that could be really useful. That could be. I was looking for a champion. Yeah, whatever.
You know what the worst part, Laird, is on that one. You're like, God, he's a 0 L15 next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
I could nail that threshold.
Another excellent question from Malky here. What sort of percentage of your capital would you recommend for trading if you want to play a bit of SO5 too? And what max percentage of your capital per card? Keith, I have an answer to this, but you look like you were ready to answer, so I'll let you go first.
I'm gonna defer to you, and then I'll give
it depends. It has nothing to do with us. I think using a specific percentage is, I think,
bad.
I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think it depends on your own risk tolerance, how much you actually want to focus on the trading. Like I wouldn't say use 80% of your capital on trading if you can only allocate 5% of the effort it takes to do it. And so it really depends on everyone. I feel like this was a question that came up a lot in DFS. It kind of applies to poker as well. Like how much do you use for cash games? How much? It really depends on how you want to play. And I mean, if I told you 100% and don't play SO5, then I mean,
But that's sort of what we're trying to prove. That's what we're trying to figure out. Should we? So I'll just say this: if you really enjoy SO5, like don't kill the game and don't kill your fun. So like I would buy a team that you were like enjoying, like if it's going to be your gas team, or it should be gas with some depth, like you and Sean talked about yesterday. But maybe buy your team, buy your gallery to an extent, see how much money is left over, and just go, I'm going to trade the rest of this money to upgrade my SO5 lineup. Like that's probably how I would try to attack it.
Yeah, I would almost look at it more in terms of how much you're trying to make as opposed to how much of your current budget. Like if you're like, I could really use $500 to get whatever better card that you want. Well, what's the realistic what's a realistic path for you trading your way to $500? And is that reasonable? And if it's unreasonable, then you come up with a new plan. And if it's reasonable, then you have to be like, all right, well, I'm going to need $300 to then turn into $800, or I'm going to need $1,000 to turn into $1,500. Like I think you need to actually think about how you're going to trade and how much you're making on each one before you, Germ says it here. What's the end goal? And reverse engineer it. Thank you.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah.
Germ is a chat legend. Shout out to Germ.
Total legend. Kubasaki said, flipping is so good. Started exactly a year ago with 10 euros and now have about 400.
Yes.
There you go.
I might be hitting you up after the fact. I feel like I got to get some rust off.
Yeah. It's not easy, though. Not easy.
Is trading easier, rare than limited? No. The margins are better. But you have more of a market as a limited.
Yeah, I think it depends what you consider easier. I think it's easier. Like there's more liquidity in limited.
Right. Yeah.
But
and there's more risk.
There's also more liquidity,
too, so
which means more sellers, which means prices can get undercut faster. And so who knows?
Yeah. Can we, I know we're running short on time. Can we talk about leave one more big strategy, which is really pick score? Flipping.
Yes.
Or do you want because I want to hit on that one because we've had the time hog ones, and then we have the one that you can do at the start of almost any game week, or you can plan out ahead of time.
Yeah, so it is Tuesday. I think we're normally going to do the show on Wednesday, but Tuesday, if you go to the weekend game week, you can see here it defaults to All-Star Limited and Forward, but if you just use all of the positions, you basically can see the players who have the top pick scores of the week. Now, we talked about this previously in terms of, like scouting through pick scores, that these can change throughout the week. As you'll see, this guy already has a projected. The lineup projections aren't 100%, but when people start looking for cards towards the end of the week or, near the game week deadline, a lot of people come to this page and they're like, what's the cheapest top guy? And if you can get these guys before people start looking, I don't think the margins are that big. And some of these players are already pretty expensive. Hugo Kuipers, Marvin Vonnetzek, Joseph Sutalo, Gustav Isaacson. These are not expensive players, but the more you go down the list, you might be able to see some potential players that people later in the week are like, man, I could really use whatever. And you could just go from there and trade off of this, basically a Tuesday to Thursday, Friday trading strategy.
So here would be two things I have, because this is what I started doing this morning to try to figure out what my strategy is going to be. One, I think where I am going to focus. So we're actually going to go in my actual strategy here, Laird. I'd love to hear if you've actually thought about it or if you're putting together as we go. But I really for pure trading, I actually like using the cap 240 pick scores.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because I think threshold gets a ton of the attention and low L15s. I feel like I have so many different conversations with random people, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I can use them in cap mode, or I can use them here." That's always our afterthought. I can always use them in threshold. So I think that's a really good place to be at, knowing that people want to do cap, and that's an easy way. SO5, that's a good way to get your return. So if you can kind of get some of these guys early, especially the dudes that just stick out, again, if you're just a micro budget, but you find a $1.50 guy and you can make him $3, it's a good start. But I do think that the earlier in the week you do this, the more research you need to do on top of it because of the lineups being out. I really like my first look. I mentioned this last week, but I really like starting out on. Let me make sure I switched my screen. I like matchups. I like starting with matchups. I like, I'm an old fart, so I like writing down the top 10 favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing those top 10 teams that could absolutely crush. And, then all of a sudden, if I see them intersect on the pick scores on the cap 240 or some of the low cap, I'm just I'm buying. Daniel Munoz was a guy, I tried to make some margin, and I saw 5 or 6 Daniel Munoz just sell this morning when I was trying to get one for a couple bucks cheaper. But that's a guy that I bet by the end of the week is up 30, 35% because he's coming off of 100. He's going to play this midweek. He might actually smash this midweek because minus 200 at home. And then they play Upin, who, if you remember us a month ago, we thought Upin got relegated. And your boy, Nicholas Madsen, just dropped the 98 on them. So yeah, I mean, Genk should actually smash this weekend. Celtic is going to smash this weekend. I don't know Celtic well enough to feel good. I started trying to figure out who their center backs were, and I'm like, oh dear God. And then I know that Celtic's one of those teams that there are so many smart people out there that have a lot of them.
Yeah.
That I'm like, maybe I should just stay away. But Salzburg's going to smash. Copenhagen, there's some guys out there. I brought in a Diego Goncalves already on their PK, on all their set pieces. I think he'll go up. He was only like $25. It should be interesting if like Leicester. I know Rapid Wien is going to. I tried to get their U23 goalkeeper, but I cheaped out, and almost all of them that I sent offers on, I got that notification, your offer has been canceled, accepted another offer. So, but like that U23 keeper from them was like $40. Heidel.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But that's really cheap for a U23 guy that has like 2 more years of utility. He's on like a 41, so he's going to fit cap mode for people that just want him for cap. He has U23. I'm like, okay, that could be a guy that I could flip. Go to his limit. Let's see if it's started up. Not really. But I'm trying to get it under all those from, somebody mentioned like the 5%. Yeah, we mentioned at the start of the show, like that's the hardest part of the flipping, where you need to look for the right opportunities because you have to beat that 5%. What you're going to call it, tax. I call it a rake. Kind of like poker and DFS. I just call it a rake. That's a great question, Blue Tomatoes. I'm not good enough at this yet. I used to be really good at this. I will be better in 2 weeks at this. I think I just need to familiarize myself with the market again. On terms of like Blue Tomatoes, what margin would you expect with Heidel? Just looking at some of the other U23 guys, I thought he should be like $50-$60 versus what he was at, which is like 45. So I was like, all right, there's like $15 there. That's not much, but when you're trying to start, anything is good. Like I think one of the things I want to target most with the guys I do is just the guys I know are going to sell. Like come hell or high water, I'm going to sell. I think if you go too far off the beaten path on some of these guys that nobody's ever heard of, you might not have a market for them.
Yeah, I've talked about this before on like different shows, but it is kind of a weird thing when it comes to players that don't have a lot of cards or that people don't know, that they just become harder to sell because like people don't know them, so they don't want them and they don't look for them, and so you're kind of left with this like, I have this really good differential. He's like, but like nobody cares.
Can I do one? I know we're running short on time. One other note I want to say, because this is like very, very different in Lister play world than like when you try to flip before. One of the greatest flip strategies before, and that you could still use, was play the guy, know he's going to smash, have him on the market during the game, then he smashes and somebody buys it. Well, there's a lot less on the market now. So if you can just go ahead and you go, this is a flip, I'm not playing it, even if it's 5 minutes before the deadline and he hasn't sold yet, don't all of a sudden delist and then go play him in a lineup that's going to die, or like a shit lineup. Pardon my French, but like just one that you just know has no upside.
Yeah.
Because when he does smash, look at Nicholas. I mean, if you want to do one more graph, look at Nicholas Madsen during the game as he's starting to smash, especially after he takes the PK. This is a guy that the only reason anybody knew who Nicholas Madsen was is because Laird got on a couple of his pods and sometimes was a little bit tilted. But like, look at that graph. And I bet you that's Saturday. Is the day you go up, is that Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Saturday because I bought him at halftime and I sent Laird a thing. I lost his super rare because I'm cheap, but he was on like 55 at halftime. He was on like 20 AA. He was taking all the set pieces. I'm like, gosh darn it, this might be the guy. Laird was like, when he won him, he's like, okay, he kind of scores really well when he plays, or when he has set pieces, and that kind of all opened up. Now De Kruper, I know I said that wrong. De Kuyper is moved on, so all the set pieces look like they're his. Yeah, so like if you would have just not played him, like let's say that you're like Nicholas Madsen away to Eupen, he's really cheap. I know if has the role I think he's going to crush. Laird, I listened back to our show. You actually mentioned him when you were making a little mini cap 240 limited team, so you were early. But all that being said, if you would have been able to wait till during the game and list them, you would have sold. and you would have not had much competition.
I'll only make everyone hesitate a little bit because his next 2 games are against Bruges and Ghent.
Home.
And then he's away to Anderlecht. So,
yeah,
but they're home. Yes.
I mean, hopefully you sold him at that point, right? Not just bought him like I did in halftime.
I didn't buy any of them. All right. Do we want to pretend that we talked about an SO5 strategy for the other side of this competition we have?
I think we did last week. I mean, we didn't know we were going to do this, but we did the preamble last week. Would be my thought. We did put together a team that was, without a 0, we would have won a card.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was more the like, did we want to talk about like what competitions we were going to focus on, or
yeah, we can just do
feel
that.
like we're starting with All-Star.
I mean, so rare that just made me laugh. We were running short on time. 15 minutes TED Talk. We got 15 more. But yeah, let's just do that real quick. I have a few minutes, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's more just like let's pretend we are starting out. What are we going to enter? Like, do you think All-Star is where we should start?
Depends on your budget.
It's our budget. What do we want to do?
I know. So I guess we also didn't decide. You said we were talking about this on the show. If we're going to just be a flip side, or if we're both going to just kind of do flip and both. Play. I kind of want to do both, personally.
Flip and play. All right.
But then we can still compare. We can do our sheets and see which one is doing more, and then just see, of course, because I want to compete, see who's better at it.
Yeah. I guess Tuggy said no.
But yeah, I mean, I think
running long, so
it's actually true. When I listen, like, I love nothing more than a longer one, because these are one of my favorite shows. Everything Sorare does, I absolutely love the shows. But yeah, I want to play. My thought is I'm playing All-Star Limited every week, and then I'm playing Cap 240, and then potentially, depending on like where it's looking at it, then I'm going to go to Cap 270. But it actually might be.
Or any regionals?
I'm not doing any regionals. You?
I didn't want to. No. I was actually just talking to somebody before this. They were like, I think I might give up the regionals. I was like, no, I get it. No thanks. I wish there was like a Cap 320. I basically just want
Cap 300
All-Star is really what I want. But
well, and specifically with limiteds too, in both Cap 240, 270, you can win scarcity up.
True.
Which not only, positive, air quote positive for progression, but, just positive in terms of the value of the card that you can sell.
Yeah. Malky's saying if we're trading for cap modes, we should do the same for SO5. I don't necessarily think we're only trading for cap modes. Like, I think we just had a 68-minute conversation about trading, and we still don't have like a defined trading strategy other than like,
because there's so many.
We're going to sell higher.
They're going to. I think we're just both going to be on very, very, very short term. On the flip, and sometimes with that is just, even if it's not the offer you wanted, but you made some money on it and you're not getting a lot of offers on the card, just take it and move on to the next one, because maybe that wasn't the best buy.
Yeah. I do think that the only kind of benefit to both of us doing both is if we do end up with players that like we buy and we're like, we think they're going to go up and they don't, we can play them. Yeah, you could play them.
Which I think is smart. But like, when I'm looking at I was just mentioning this too for like SO5 strategy side too, because ultimately, like with both SO5 and trading, we're very focused on the values and making the gallery value or our yields go up here. I'm not going to be buying like America or Asia cards. I might actually. I was very stern in that until I heard it out loud, and I didn't like it as much because of the value.
I think I'll say I don't see myself buying any America or Asia cards to flip.
Right. No, I think that's right. As I bought 4 Rossies.
But you sold one already. 2?
Down to 3. I mean the rarest to play. So
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, but like,
I don't know. We'll see. The whole point of this show now is to like see what we do and talk about what we did, and hopefully celebrate more than we lament.
So here's the craziest thing too, is like the first guy I picked up because he's just not expensive enough. Like Reynoso Limited is $38. Like Gil Limited is $75, and then Kimmich, who is on a similar para page, is $304.
Seems high.
I mean, or is Reynoso's just stupidly low?
I think we both agree that he is.
He is, for sure. But I mean, you know, those are the type of things that from a trading strategy, I would not do Reynoso, because I don't think that there's going to be a run on demand on America cards. But for SO5, getting that type of score for that price is really good.
You know who is a similar player to Carlos Heel, who is cheaper than Heel and Reynoso and Kimmich?
Who's that?
Christopher Olsen from Midtjylland.
I can see that. No, he doesn't like not taking a lot of sets right now.
I watched a few sets.
Okay.
But you're right. The dude smashes even without 100% of the sets.
This is true. I mean, but those are like the type of players I think both of us are going to try to make hay with. Is not like so far off the beaten track. But yeah, Blue Tomatoes, you know, I think Sorare data has made Marvin famous at this point, so he's no longer overlooked.
I will say that I think Olsen's run is currently like unsustainable, so you're probably buying at peak scores right now anyway.
But the good news is that if you did buy the peak, at least, you know, if you wanted to flip him over to more of like an SO5 type of player, you've got a ton of utility coming. So, you know, it only takes one podium to make up for, you know, potentially bad buy.
Oh, man, Olsen has 3 similar players on Sorare data. Carlos Heel, Ryan Gauld, and Bruno Fernandes.
What a group. Can you just for mention too on this, because I love similar players, but one thing, if you want like the whole group, is to turn off that same age filter. And you can get like people that...
And then you had Thiago Almada and some guy in Saudi Arabia.
Some guy that in a year from now, we will know.
Oh, these are... These are Champions League games.
Yeah.
Salem Al Dawsari. Unfamiliar with him myself. But anyway. All right. We'll cut it off there.
We're good.
Thank you to everybody for joining us. As a reminder, if you want to enter for a free 1-month star membership of Sorare Data, please leave a comment in the video below, not in the live chat. Thank you to everybody here's live. But in the comment below, if you're listening on any of your listening platforms or watching on Spotify, go to YouTube, find this video, and leave a comment with your favorite Sorare Data feature. That will enter you into the raffle for a free 1 month. And we plan on doing something like that every week. So every week we would like to give away 1-month star membership so more people can take advantage of all the tools that we show during the show. I'm off next week, so I actually don't know how we're going to figure this out. I literally realized it like as I was saying all of this stuff in terms of we'll see you next week, but we'll take care of everything. Keith and I are going to start doing some of these things. Like we're going to start buying players to flip. We're going to buy cards to play in SO5. And so theoretically you could track it, what we're doing, but we are going to talk about it on the show every week and say, I think this worked. This is why it didn't work. This is why it worked, and all of that stuff so that you guys can keep up with that. If there are any things that you want us to touch on that kind of fall outside of that, definitely just leave a comment, hit me up on Twitter at Andrew M. Laird, and we'll happily talk about anything because it's so rare, and that's just what we do. Keith, good luck. I think we're going to need it, but I'm excited for this. I'm excited. So thank you, everybody, and good luck.